House. Thanks for coming, y'all. So welcome to our presentation on the power of posture. Before we begin, I'd just like to introduce myself a little bit for those who haven't known me or got the chance to meet me. I'm Dr. Topher, and I've been working with the owner of Cadence Chiropractic, Dr. Amanda, for the last 2 years, which have been an awesome 2 years of my last existence. I'm a chiropractor here. I like to stress diet, movement, healthy exercises, lifestyle changes, emotional well-being, and chiropractic care, of course. So let's sit up straight and begin our presentation. You can go to the next slide, Dr. Amanda. 1 second. Did it work? Oh, I see the mouse. There we go. All right, so we have a couple of presentation goals to go over. I like to just set goals so we know where we're going in our course of action. The first will be just informing you on the overarching health benefits of posture and well-being. Next, we'll dive into common muscular imbalances. And then last, and most importantly, we'll explore some steps to guide you into maintaining and producing healthy posture. Next slide. So first, posture shapes how your body functions, how you feel, and even how you show up in the world. So let's uncover the importance of posture. Next slide. So we're just going to kind of go over the importance of having good posture on your overall well-being. The first one is just with your breath and your respiratory health. So proper posture is essential for health because it directly supports the body's most fundamental process, which is breathing. Having good posture opens the chest and allows the lungs to expand and contract fully. This allows every cell to receive oxygen for energy production, and we could all use a little more energy in our day, I'm sure. Having good postural breaths is also important for your nervous system. Expansive deep breathing stimulates an important nerve called the vagus nerve in your body. It's got a lot of research and a lot of kind of hype lately in the last couple of years. This nerve, the vagus nerve, kind of calms down your sympathetic or your fight or flight response, and it also strengthens your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest state, that sense of calm that your nervous system can allow you to do. And when your body has a regulated nervous system, we have lower stress, we have lower anxiety, and even lower blood pressure, believe it or not. Additionally, having adequate oxygen increases our vagal tone, which enhances immune regulation and reduces systemic inflammation. Breathing is also very important for our cerebral spinal fluid, which is kind of like the blood of our nervous system, which is very important to us as chiropractors. When we breathe, our body produces kind of a pumping mechanism throughout our bones to help circulate this cerebral spinal fluid throughout our nervous system. Similarly, breathing helps pump our blood and our lymph flow. Exhalation is also just as important as inhalation. When we exhale, we eliminate carbon dioxide and other waste gas that would cause havoc in our body if left unexpelled. We could do a whole talk on the power of breath, so maybe that's our next one, Dr. Amanda. But in short, when we have good posture, when our posture is reduced or inhibited, our breathing suffers, causing a cascade of unhealthy events. Next slide, please.
I just have a quick question if I can interject.
Totally.
The vagus nerve thing,
Mm-hmm.
do you have an opinion on those things that supposedly electrically stimulate your vagus nerve?
No doctoral opinion.
Got it, okay.
I would honestly say, just because the chiropractic nature, we're a lot allocating for like things that are in your body that are already supporting health. So although we have external things that can stimulate that, in my opinion, your breath is just such a direct pathway to stimulate that nerve. It's free, it's quote unquote easy, we all know how to do it. But I know the breath for me personally has been the most powerful stimulation. Also, not to like prep our cold plunge, but the cold plunge and the cold plunge and the heat also do stimulate some of that stuff. Any comments?
Yeah, I think there's some conditions where a vagal stimulator is an important piece, and that's why we say we don't have any doctoral recommendations, because that isn't really in our scope. But clearing the spine and nervous system and using your breath are really powerful ways to help influence the vagal nerve, separate from other reasons that others might give advice for.
Okay, thank you.
Also, humming
Mm-hmm.
stimulates it. So here we go. No.
It's actually really cool, and one of the ways our body can mimic things like what cats do, because cats in the purring is really helpful for their nervous system in their body, and that humming is like, it resets a lot of really good, powerful things.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for the question, and I hope that kind of sparks people to maybe jump in and interject for sure. I'll allow that. Gives me a break from reading. All right, so the next kind of important thing about posture is your skeletal system. So you can think of your skeletal system as a framework for your posture. Essentially, our skeletal system needs to be strong enough to protect against trauma, but flexible enough to allow us to enjoy daily activity. I like to think of this as kind of the teeter-totter of our spine, with protection on one end and flexibility on the other. When we have poor posture, the spine is off balance and it is driven to put more energy into protection, which reduces its flexibility. When the spine is hyper-focused on protection for extended periods of time, our spinal motion is greatly reduced. With poor posture and hyperprotection of the spine, we see degeneration, and arthritic changes tend to progress at a much quicker rate. Normally that will cause things like new bone formation to happen in our body, which essentially locks our bones into more of that protection, and then it greatly reduces that flexion. So luckily, our chiropractic profession is largely focused on improving the health of your skeletal system and nervous system, and specific adjustments that Dr. Amanda will describe a little bit later will encourage proper posture and balance the spinal teeter-totter. So we want the spinal teeter-totter to be able to move up and down like this, because sometimes in our body we need a little bit more protection, sometimes we need a little bit more flexion. But if we get stuck, I guess kind of like that, with protection on the heavy essence, that's when we kind of see our bodies start to form postural patterns and have kind of arthritic changes and degeneration occur. Cool. Next slide. Pain. All right, so first I'd like to get on my chiropractic soapbox about pain. Today our Western medical and pharmaceutical rhetoric around pain involves the words bad, avoid, and eliminate. Now I'm not trying to say that we need to just suffer through pain and we need to avoid pain at all costs, but I would like to switch from an avoidance to pain to a curiosity around pain. Essentially, pain is our body telling us that something is wrong. It's like placing a target around our body saying, hey, I need help right here. If we continue to just block the pain or even ignore the pain, we are missing a signal for change. But if we become curious about our pain, we might find a more sustainable solution. Now, pain can be related to poor posture. Essentially, when our body is slouched or misaligned, we put more biomechanical stress on our joints, sending the signal for pain to our brain that our current posture is causing us harm. If left ignored or avoided, the pain from posture will only get worse and lead to chronic headaches, back pain, neck tension, or even joint wear. Next slide, please. All right, mood. Mood is a really cool thing about posture. Did you know that there is a strong link between your posture and your inner wellness? For example, I know if I'm sitting or slouched for long periods of time, I tend to feel less motivated and unenthused. I strongly believe that if I told everyone in this room to slouch for a day, you would be very mad at me and yourself and everyone around you. Interestingly enough, in psychology, there's a theory called embodied cognition, and it describes how your brain reads your posture and assigns a mood, which is pretty cool. Research has also found that posture can affect hormone and chemical balancing throughout your body. Certain chemicals like cortisol, which is related to stress, endorphins related to feelings at ease, and serotonin, which is related to a sense of calm, are all connected to how you present in this world through your posture. We linked a very cool study by Amy Cuddy, who presented on TED Talk, who's a really well-known researcher on postural and behavioral psychology. And she actually found that having certain postural patterns for only 2 minutes completely changes your chemical makeup. So for example, she had people go into a room and assume kind of a slouched position and monitored before and after how their chemical makeup changed. And other people, like you're finishing that 100 meter and everyone goes like this. It just kind of rocks your body with a bunch of cool endorphins, and you just feel a lot better for sure afterwards. So we can definitely send that link out to you. I think there's like a 20-minute TED Talk on it if you want to go in depth, but there's also like an 8-minute little cheat sheet that someone made, I think, just with the key points. Cool. Any questions on that? Wonderful. Next slide, please. All right, now we cannot get through a full posture talk without saying, lift with your legs, not your back. When we use short-term healthy posture positions, we're able to essentially enjoy life more fully, including playing with our kids or our grandkids, going for a bike ride, walking around the park, or even shoveling your driveway, as we've started to experience in this cold Minnesota winter. In the long term, when we have and use proper posture, we keep our body in prime conditions to continue not only living, but also thriving throughout the years. We'll go over some ergonomical points too, so this is just kind of a little reminder, but we'll go a little bit more in depth with Dr. Amanda on things that you can do throughout your day just to support your posture as you're moving and grooving through your life. Next slide. Cool. So now that we know that posture impacts your life from your breathing, your skeletal, your nervous system health, to your mood, to even your daily activities, now for this next section of the presentation, we're going to switch to the two most common posture patterns. So it's important to look at the overall pattern of posture and not just segmental little chunks of our body. This gives us a global understanding of how the body is adapting or maladapting and where we can make the most positive change in your biomechanical system. It's really easy to say, oh, I have slumped shoulders and I need to just pull my shoulders back. But essentially your whole body is so interconnected in such a magnificent way that you might also have to work on your low back to allow your slumped shoulders to come back. So we really can't stress enough to look at the whole biomechanical chain, the muscles, the tendons, how they all interconnect, even the nervous system regulation, and if it's telling muscles to turn on or to turn off, just so we can get a whole global pattern and a shift in your body. All right, next. All right. So our first posture pattern is called upper cross syndrome, and it focuses on your neck, your chest, and your shoulders. Essentially, we have muscles in your body that are underworking and muscles that are overworking, and this creates a characteristical cross pattern of muscle dysfunction, hence the name. So upper cross syndrome, it's in the upper part of your body, and we have muscles that are tight, muscles that are weak, and it kind of creates this cross pattern. So here's your muscles that are tight, up down by your chest and up in your upper back, and then the weak muscles that we need to strengthen are your low back, or kind of your upper back, your rhomboids and stuff, and your deep flexors in your neck. So upper cross syndrome is often caused by repetitive postural habits, such as long hours of sitting at the computer, looking down at your phone, as I'm trying to go like this, driving, or even bad exercise programs that you do in the gym. I'm not going to call out anyone here, but if you're going to the gym and you're doing chest all day, that can actually cause a postural pattern in your body. Over time, the body makes adaptations to compensate for this posture, which we will discuss more in detail later. I'm kind of just giving you a little glimpse into this, and then we'll go over how you can correct this postural pattern later on. Next slide. So now we're just going to talk about upper cross syndrome and how it directly impacts the upper part of your body. So the first effect of upper cross syndrome is forward head posture. This is problematic because it places your head and neck out of alignment with your spine, creating a cascade of stress throughout the body. Normally the head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds in neutral position, but for every inch that the head moves forward, the perceived weight of the head nearly doubles. So you can imagine the stress that's putting on your upper body. Forward head posture leads to tension headaches, muscle spasms, and even stiff neck. Forward head posture can also affect the spinal cord and the nerve pathways that exit that part of the spine. This may influence your balance, your coordination, or even your autonomic functions such as digestion or heart rate as those nerves come out of your neck. Chronic forward head posture ultimately contributes also to premature spinal degeneration. And in this image right here, we can see that there's almost a 2-inch forward head posture, which could times 3 or times 4 that weight of the head. I always like to say with new people, if you can imagine carrying a bowling ball close to your chest, you could do that for quite a bit of time, but for every inch that you put the bowling ball away from your body, the amount of time that you have to perceive to hold it up gets a little harder and a little harder. So even if it's just an inch or a centimeter or 2, think of that throughout your whole day as your neck muscles, your chest has to compensate for that as you move throughout life. Next slide, please. All right, now we're on rounded shoulders. So rounded shoulders are often paired with forward head posture, and it's more than just a cosmetic concern. Rounded shoulders put constant tension on your upper back, your neck, and your shoulder muscles. This often leads to chronic neck pain, tension, headaches, and even upper back discomfort. With shoulders pulled forward, the chest cavity narrows and the ribs become less mobile. This reduces your lung expansion. So you can see how it's kind of a cyclical cycle where posture causes shallow breathing causes rounded shoulders causes bad posture, and it just kind of cycles and cycles until we kind of nip it in the butt. Rounded shoulders also changes your spinal loading and accelerates wear and tear on your discs and your joints, and it can worsen posture-related arthritis over time. Rounded shoulders also narrows the space where your nerves and your blood vessels pass through, causing numbness, tingling, or weakness in the arms and hands. Some of you might know of the kind of like syndrome called thoracic outlet syndrome. Like right here, there's a bunch of there's a big collection of nerves and vessels, like blood vessels, that come out and in, and that's why some people often experience that numbness and tingling in their hands, or even doing overhead activities if you're in sports or athletics, or even just like reaching for that top glass on the counter can be really difficult with rounded shoulders. All right,
Dr.
next.
Topher,
Yeah,
what's
Jackie.
that called again?
It's called thoracic outlet syndrome.
Okay, thanks.
I think sometimes it's also called thoracic inlet syndrome if you're kind of looking for buzzwords, but TOS, thoracic outlet syndrome, is like the clinical thing that I see a lot of people get diagnosed with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next slide. All right, similar to forward head posture and rounded shoulders, your neck also has a natural C-shaped curve resembling a banana. This curve isn't a flaw. It's a built-in shock absorber and tension distributor that keeps your head balanced over your shoulders and protects your spinal cord and nerves. When that curve straightens from chronic upper cross syndrome posture, it disrupts normal body mechanics and nerve function. Loss of the neck curve also changes how pressure is absorbed throughout the upper discs and joints. Encased in your spinal bones of your neck is your spinal cord, which is a very important part of your body, and the nerves that branch to and from to your hands and your upper cavity of your body. When this curve is abnormal, it can stretch or compress the spinal cord and nerve roots and can disrupt normal nerve functioning, which can cause a cascade of things down the line. So in summary, upper cross syndrome, which is a posture-related syndrome, causes that forward head posture, the rounded shoulders, and a reduced normal curve of the neck. So this is kind of that normal curve. Right here we see a nice banana shape, and your spinal cord lives right in here, and it's seated very comfortably in that. But then if you can imagine, we're straightening out right here. We're getting a little bit of an S curve. That spinal cord is being pulled, tugged, and disrupted in ways that it just wasn't designed to do. Awesome. Yeah?
Do you know how this might be related to peripheral nerve damage?
Yeah, so right now this is mainly talking about central nervous system, and the word peripheral nervous system is kind of everything coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Your peripheral nerves branch out of these holes that come out of there. I would say it would be related. I would say if you're having peripheral nerve issues, the central nervous system might be struggling a little bit. But if someone kind of informed you about peripheral nerve issue, they're mainly talking about everywhere except the spinal cord. And what we're talking about with this curve really deals with the spinal cord. Anything to add?
Yeah, there's sort of two layers of peripheral neuropathy and nerve issues. A lot of that, I think, as you're familiar, can be like circulatory, so related to diabetes. The way that it can connect to the central nervous system is that the whole nervous system has an optimal window, if you think of a rubber band, not too stretched, not too shortened in order to function well. And if your rubber band of the nervous system is stretched within the spinal cord due to the curve being straightened or reversed, that can increase tension throughout the rest of the nervous system, especially in the neck, because the outsides of the spinal cord, the outer rings of it, that can be most put pressure on are the ones that go down to your legs. So if your peripheral neuropathy response is in your legs, that adds a little bit more of a layer of potential that there could be some tension related to the lack of curve in the neck. But again, peripheral neuropathy often means layers of things. So this is a piece of anything nerve related, but I wouldn't say it would be the only piece.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I would say also like the rounded shoulders and the thoracic outlet syndrome and kind of the lower body stuff too would probably play a little bit more factor in peripheral nerve, just because we're compressing nerves, blood vessels, and tampering with our natural design of our body. Awesome, next slide. All right, so now if we have an upper cross syndrome, can you guess what is next? The lower half of the body also displays this postural imbalance. and it's appropriately called the lower cross syndrome. So the concept is still the same. We have a collection of muscles that are weak and a collection of muscles that are overactive. In general, the hip flexors, so the fronts of the thighs, are weak. Sorry, in general, the hip flexors, the front of the thighs, are overactive, and the back of the body, the glutes, are underactive. And again, we'll go over kind of how this happens for sure. And if you can kind of like see, like this, I guess if I stand this way, it'll be a little easier for the picture, but if the front of my hip muscles are tight, it's gonna pull my body this way. So I'm gonna get a little pop booty over here. And then that's gonna cause my glutes to be overstretched and weak. It's gonna cause my hamstrings to be stretched. My abdominals are gonna be weak, because if I contract my abs right now, I go like this. So you can see how this is a whole postural balance and how everything is so interconnected. So we have parts of our body that are tight and the parts of our body that are weak or stretched. Awesome. Next slide. So now we'll just talk about, like we did with upper cross syndrome, just kind of what lower cross syndrome trickles down to in our body. So our pelvis moves in multiple directions, and it's called our pelvis moves in multiple directions, and one of the main motions is called pelvic tilt. Ideally, we should have a balance between neutral range of motion in both tilting forwards and tilting backs. Just like how I kind of demonstrated right there, if you tilt forward, you can think of kind of pushing your butt back, and if you tilt back, you can think of tucking your tailbone in. So that's kind of a nice motion that your pelvis should be able to do naturally. However, lower cross syndrome essentially locks our pelvis in forward tilt, causing a postural imbalance. This lock and forward tilt ultimately then leads to other symptoms and problems, including increased pain signal, not only in your lower back, but also down your biomechanical chain into your knees and your ankles and your feet. Next slide. All right, so very similar to our neck curve, our low back also has a curve that's designed to have a banana shape. This natural curve is essential for the spinal and nervous system to maintain proper health. When we see this curve become flattened due to lower cross syndrome, the bones and the nervous system experience extra pressure and stress. This can lead to an increased rate of degeneration and even neurological complaints such as numbness and tingling in the lower body. So you can see here, the images kind of flip from the neck, but here's your belly over here. Your back is kind of on that left side of each x-ray. This is a great curve. We see that banana curve go through, and kind of just where that red line is, that's where the end of your spinal cord is situated, and it's nice and comforted by that healthy curve. If you can think of like just a straight pillar and you're jumping up and down, that's quite a bit of stress, but luckily our body has designed a nice curve in our body. But then over here, it's looking pretty stacked on top of itself, and if you can just imagine that that central nervous system is being stretched and pulled in ways that it just, again, wasn't designed to do. Awesome, next slide. All right, so hopefully by now you have noticed that posture isn't just about sitting up straight, but instead has a profound impact about your overall wellness. Next, we're gonna share some action steps to correcting postural imbalances. Next slide. All right, so Dr. Amanda and I have laid out a great game plan for you to get you back in postural harmony. Luckily, the first step is just awareness, which you have accomplished by attending this presentation. Even though it's the simplest step, without awareness, change simply just cannot happen. Next, I'll hand the presentation off to Dr. Amanda, where she will go over the remaining steps like chiropractic care, ergonomic enhancement, stretching, and strengthening. We'll do a little pause here. Are there any questions before we kind of get into the meat and bones of our presentation? Cool, awesome. I'll hand it off, and I'll be on the computer now.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Great.
Most of you are familiar in some or more parts of what we do as chiropractors and the tools that we use. I would just like to sort of bullet point review a few of them just to connect the dots on what you do with us here each time you're coming in to work with our adjustments. And then if you haven't been seen in a while, just connecting the dots on what things you might be interested in restarting or sharing with other people about. So we're going to talk about the chiropractic care part first. The three tools that we use in the office are meant to be bringing objective assessment to evaluating the function of the spine and the nervous system. We'll talk in a little bit more in a second of the x-rays and how we actually evaluate your spinal posture. But as Dr. Topher mentioned, that spinal cord has a natural placement. We want good, easy flow of the communication from your brain through your body. One of the ways we assess how well your nervous system is functioning is with a thermography scan. It's a temperature graph. It's a window into what the nervous system is doing. We want there to be nice and easy yellow and light blue colors, meaning the nervous system is adapting, it's functioning optimally. When we have areas of the spine that are maybe not moving well or positioned well, that will influence how those nerve signals travel out of the spinal cord to the body and shift the communication to the blood flow, making it warmer in some areas or colder in other areas. So anytime we see the extremes of warm or cold, that's a sign that nervous system isn't getting the optimal communication, and we want to do that scan every visit to track how and when your body is getting stuck in the actual spine or the nervous system. So our adjustments can be really specific to unlocking and helping your nervous system and your brain communicate to the body. Where we work is based on the x-rays and looking at the posture. So as we talked about, wanting a nice banana curve so that all that great information in our brain can pass nice and easily down the spinal cord and then out the nerves to our body. If we don't have that optimal curve that places pressure on the nervous system, as we just talked about, the x-rays show us the posture at those checkpoints that we assess it. We want to help you get to as much of that nice banana curve as possible, not assuming that our visits are making the change, but actually checking on it by doing reassessments and talking with you about what we're doing, what you're doing, how to help everything to move towards the most ideal posture for you. The other part we do is the movement assessment, where you're looking down, you're looking up, you're bending. The movement of the spine is really important. Where it's stuck is where we want our adjustments to be delivered. So the movement assessment in the x-rays allows us to identify which bones are moving well and which bones aren't. One of the biggest things in chiropractic that I'm passionate about is not adjusting somewhere that's already moving the way it's supposed to move. How do we know that it's moving or not moving if we're not doing an evaluation that shows us that? The moving x-rays really help us to be very specific with that. And then our adjustments get to be that much more specific because we're only adjusting the bones that are needing help and moving well. Any questions about the chiropractic piece?
What is that little tool on top?
This is the instrument that we use. It's the mechanical one. So we have the tapping. One of the things in adjustments is working in the right place, but also the right intensity. We use the drop table for the adjustments where we're doing more of the manual work. That's a little bit more oomph, if you will. If it's a day where we need a little bit more of a reminder, but not as much oomph, the tapping actually helps to vibrate the segment, helping unlock the muscles, the ligaments, get some hydration into the disc. So we're still specific to that bone, but we're getting a different level of intensity. It's also really helpful to use for muscle work. We talk about posture imbalances and what areas are tight. So we'll work on some of the muscles that connect to areas that are tight, sort of in a way like a massage gun might, but we're being very targeted to the tissues that connect to the areas of the spine that we're wanting to work on. Good question. So since we've been sitting for a little bit, we're going to start walking through some of our take-home tools. We have all of this on a sheet that I'll give you in just a little bit, but we're going to start with this one. If you find yourself sitting for work or sitting and doing something for a long period of time and you want a little bit of a break, we're going to do this vagus nerve and shoulder roll reset. So while you're sitting there, we're going to do this. You can technically do this as often as you want to, but I would give you the takeaway to try to do it each hour that you're sitting at least. I know it can be tricky to have lots of homework, so if we start small and build from there, it also builds confidence. You know you did something and then you can build into doing it more often. This here involves a slow inhale through your nose for 4 seconds as we pinch the shoulders at the ears. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now start to exhale and you're going to roll your shoulders back and down, almost like you're pinching your shoulder blades together behind you. So that'll be for 6 to 8 seconds. So it's like a 2 to 1, 1 to 2, however that ratio goes. And again, 4 second inhale and exhale.
Are we going straight down or not rolling back?
You want to roll back with it with
Okay.
a slight pinch. I don't need you to exaggerate,
Okay.
but the idea is reminding your body that those shoulder blades should be slightly pinched together And so again, you're getting a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a pinch, and you're opening things up. When we sit, we tend to get into it. What are we doing? I have to be seeing everything really close, and we want to help open up the front, that forward head posture, that rounded shoulder. We want to open things up. And the breathing of that 4 seconds, 8 seconds, doing that 2 to 3 cycles, you're engaging the breath, you're engaging the vagus nerve, you're helping to reset. So we're kind of incorporating a little bit of everything with this. Next one. Posture reset. So we just did our vagus nerve breathing and shoulder roll. Now we're going to get back into our work. What I want you to think about is keeping your feet grounded, keeping your ribs stacked over your hips so you're actually engaging your core as much as you can. That doesn't mean don't relax, but it means be active in your sitting. And then I'll show you some more of the sitting posture mechanics here. But what I want you to be thinking about is I just took a break from my hour of work and did my reset, or my breath reset. Let me actually reset my posture too. Because even if I'm only holding it for 5 minutes and then I start to get into my activity again, that's 5 minutes less that you spent in the more stressful position. So we'll go to the next one and look at the seated, well actually let's talk about the seated posture on this one first. So one of the things that we like is feet on the floor, ideally about 90 degrees, maybe a little bit higher. I like to tell people to have your hips slightly higher than your knees. Stacking your shoulders, your ribs on top of your hips, so you're actually like active on your sit bones. Versus if you can think about it, if you can see me, if I'm gonna lounge and I have a rounding to my back while I'm sitting, this is just gonna keep everything rounded and forward. So you wanna be actually sitting on your sit bones. Your lower back actually gets some of that banana curve forward, and then I'm seated here. The elbows, typically you wanna keep it around the 90-degree angle. The idea here is I don't want you to use the shoulder, the elbow rests and have your shoulders like this all day. Because you're not actively engaging the muscles to hold your shoulders high, but your shoulder muscles are shortened, and now they're gonna get used to being shortened, and they're not gonna like lengthening as much. So if you can have your elbows at a rest where they're actually shoulders nice and calm. Sometimes people's chairs don't have the ability to change those armrests, so you could maybe get a pillow or fold a blanket a couple times to have your seat a little bit higher, and then adjust the height so again your feet are hitting the floor. Same thing if you have a keyboard, trying to kind of have your arms rested naturally across it, but not too high or too low, because if you have too much bend in the wrist, that can create extra stress too. I like to recommend personally that you have the middle of your monitor at your eye level, because now I can look up, I can look down, left and right, and I don't have to move my head at all. If your eyes are at the top of your monitor, you're more likely to be doing this, and even that little bit of an angle can create stress through things. So these are some of the cues that I've learned and like to share with people. If you are interested in having us assess your ergonomic sitting posture, you can have someone take a picture and send it over, or show me at your next visit, and we can talk about ideas for it. Any questions about like sitting desk posture though right now?
All right, that's for your monitor. I have a laptop, and that could be fatal in a way.
Great question. Yeah, laptops are tricky because your keyboard and monitor are so intertwined. Yep. Yeah.
Down here.
So there's two options. One I think is the most accessible is putting your laptop propped up on some boxes and
Okay.
getting an external keyboard. So you have either the cord or the Bluetooth connection. So now you can have your keyboard lower while your monitor is higher. It's still portable. Everything is still there, but you know, whatever the cost of that keyboard is, that's the most accessible option for that. Otherwise, I would say to try to change your position. So maybe I have my laptop and I'm gonna stand higher for a while, and then maybe I'm sitting for a while, but I'm gonna put it up so it's kind of at an angle, like the keyboard is tilted with the monitor, the screen, excuse me, a little bit higher. That one's definitely trickier, so I think having variety of shifting versus a really long period in one
Okay.
position can be helpful. Yeah,
I
Martha?
have I forget the name of it, but it will bring the laptop up.
Yeah.
So it's not straight on, but it's close.
Sure. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier is like
Apparatus.
these are cues, and I like, take what you can with it.
Uh-huh.
But what is negative is if you feel like you have to do all of it or none of it. Take the pieces and build them in, see how that, that little bit of a shift, even for a short period of time, can really be impactful. And then maybe you're able to add something in, or a longer period as you go. Did you have a question?
No.
Cool. All right. So now we were going to talk a little bit on some other postural things. So if I'm going to sit and reading, similar things of wanting feet down, not too much angle, like 90 degrees, hips roughly at or just above the level of the knees, sitting so that you're actually engaging your ribs and your lower back curve is forward. Couches are really notorious, same thing with recliners, for getting that really exaggerated lumbar curve. Some couches and recliners also have a lot of padding for your head, which is actually pushing your head forward. So you can see my whole body has become like a banana, and they're losing those two key curves that we need to have. So trying to not use those as much as possible. And then when I want to read, stacking those pillows under my elbows so that I'm lifting, but I'm not holding. So what I'm paying attention to is in front of my eyes. I couldn't get the picture to show the elbows on the pillows, but this certainly works too. I like to put them and just have my elbows resting on the pillow, and it holds the book in front, or the tablet, or whatever else you might be using. For sleeping, I always say the priority is to sleep. Whatever your position of sleeping is that you are able to get rest in, I would rather you have sleep than be overly stressed about the position you're in. And whatever that is, 6 to 8, maybe 10 hours of sleeping in a certain position that stresses and strains things can be impactful. So if you want to be mindful of our positioning, if we're on our side, having a pillow between the knees is very helpful. Having a pillow under your head so that you're as stacked here as we can versus too much towards the bed or too much away from the bed. So that depends a little bit on your shoulder width of how much pillow that means. But I would say the hugging of the pillow is probably my number one piece. And again, I couldn't get my image to show you it the right way, but if you take that pillow horizontally and hug it this way, it's actually stacking your elbows further apart from each other. And now you don't want to hug from here, you want the elbows low, hugging almost more in front of your abdomen. And that creates a stacking of your shoulders and elbows. And if you can see, I'm not curled up, or I'm not curled up and creating all of that shortness of everything. I'm actually allowing my body to stack and rest, and maybe I don't hold that position for an hour, maybe I hold it all night, but it's helping to get that position in one that's a little less stressful.
But when I've done that, sometimes I've got breathing where I've got
Yeah.
one side that gets congested.
Yep.
So I lay on my back
Okay.
in order to, so will you address the fact of us
Laying on the
sleeping
back.
Yeah.
Laying on the back, I actually still like to hug a pillow or have one on my stomach because it helps the elbows not be super bent in any position or up high or too low. The pillow then goes underneath your knees to have a slight relaxation of the lower back to be a little bit more flattened. And now the pillow here sort of depends, because if I'm laying here on my bed and I have a really big pillow that's lifting my head up, this is impacting that posture, right? I'm relaxed, but it's all night stretched.
Yeah.
So a little bit less pillow, or kind of rolling it underneath your neck so that your head and your shoulders are more in a similar position. Like head and shoulders are really close to the bed, and then the middle of the neck is supported is powerful. I've done where I take a blanket or a towel and roll it up and place it under my neck so that it creates some support. Or you can use your pillow and have it start right about here. So instead of it being where my shoulders are here and then my pillow is just under my head, I kind of raise my whole body by putting it more behind my shoulders and head.
I found that. Now, what for those of us that have a sleep number bed,
Yeah,
where you're kind of using the mechanicals of that,
sure,
I've noticed then that you maybe need less of a pillow,
sure,
because unless we have to position yourself so here,
right.
so that you're bending from here rather than.
I would agree, yes.
Okay. All right.
I haven't experienced one myself, so I don't have personal knowledge, but if I think of the biomechanics of having the whole thing tilted, I could see where too much tilt could also be bad, but like you're saying, that amount of tilt maybe helps you to kind of need less of a
And also
pillow.
with my knee operations,
Yeah,
having the legs up
yeah,
have helped for that too. But I know, we've talked about this, about okay, when I've got my sleep, what's the proper way? Because at times
Yeah.
you prop up too many pillows, and then
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're like this, and you're going, well, Dr. Mann is gonna like this because it's gonna be more stretching, okay?
It's a great question, and that kind of brings me to even bending and putting the pillow underneath your knees is technically shortening the hip flexors, and that's not the ideal situation. But if the leg's straight makes your lower back arch, you're sleeping in a not very restful position. So this sort of, again, brings us to the stretches that we're about to do.
Yeah.
I want you to sleep, I want you to be restful, I want you to have as much of an optimal posture as we can while sleeping, but most likely we're still gonna need to work on stretching the pecs and stretching the hip flexors no matter what position we're in.
Do you have any recommendations for pillows for side sleepers?
Don't buy the most expensive one.
Never would.
I think, yeah, don't fall the marketing play.
Unfortunately, I don't, because there's so many varieties and there's so many different, like even myself, sometimes I want a firmer pillow, sometimes I want a softer pillow, and it's just what's allowing me to relax. So I would say the more you can keep a cue of trying to not end up in really goofy like positions, there might be a pillow for you that doesn't work for me. And then there could certainly be others that have a much more like detailed explanation of that. But when I've talked with people who've gotten very specific pillows, or even if I've tried ones that have kind of that arch for the neck or the dip
Contour.
for the head, and even then, like, it doesn't, there's something that is unhappy while supporting other things.
Right.
So I don't know that I have one blanket answer that could help everybody to feel comfortable in any position. That's why I try to focus more on if you can not be crunched for a little bit of it, if you can help find a position that your body relaxes but isn't overly stretched. Those are the keys that I try to guide, because again, how you use it might be different than how I use it.
And you mentioned it has to do with the width of your shoulders. I have pretty wide shoulders, so
Yeah.
is there like a measurement you can take, like maybe from here to here? And
That's
you're like, this is
also a
the
great
perfect
question.
thickness of a pillow.
I think that would be a little bit more in like just taking a look at like the stacking, because if I if I get my pillow and now I'm stacked like this is the space I need to fill, so I'm not too head down and too head up. So maybe I test a pillow and see how that feels, and kind of like, do I feel like my nose and my sternum are fairly level? Do I feel rested versus like stressed or stretched? So it's still, I don't mean to like not give you an answer, but the cues to help you find your answer is sort of my goal.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any comments on stomach sleepers with your head turned to the side?
That's a great question, and there's a lot of things that I've heard over the years that stomach sleeping is very powerful for a lot of things in respiration, because you're getting resistance in your breathing, and really helpful when you have a really good curve in your neck. But many of us don't have a really good curve in our neck, so sleeping on our stomach can actually be stressful because it's stretching and pinching certain things. So again, I would give the, hey, sleep where you feel comfortable, because the sleeping is the priority. But then if you can, I want to grab a pillow, because I think that all of this would be much easier if I actually had one.
Not that we sleep in our office, you know.
So if you're on your stomach without a pillow and your head is very twisted, right? That's creating a lot of a stretch. So maybe we can put a pillow under part of our body so that it raises the shoulder away, so my head is flat on the bed, but now I've turned my angle to have a little bit more support. That's what the most that I've found. Sometimes I need to sleep on my stomach. That's the most that I've found and read about, like being able to help with that. But again, this is sort of where it's like, what's the scientific answer? It's, you know, supporting the angles and not overstressing tissues. Cool. Any other questions about work, desk, sitting, reading, couches, sleeping?
Going more last week. Well, you addressed my problem is that I started out that way on the couch,
Yeah,
and then next thing you know, I'm down here.
yeah.
And other than putting Velcro on my pants and destroying the couch, is that because of weak muscles in it through here? It just seems like just slip as it goes on. It drives Alice crazy. I said, I'll start here, and then next thing you know,
Yeah,
as the time goes by,
yeah,
I'm slipping down to where I am,
sure.
literally like that.
It's interesting because I think it depends on a few things. It depends on the couch. It depends on how long you're there. Like, because what I found that'll happen is you're sitting and you're rounded, and because you're rounded, you start to round more.
Yeah.
But who wants to sit like this all the time? And then that gets to the question of, well, should we really be sitting as much as we are? And should our relaxing just be sitting? Are we actively sitting, or are we like collapsing? And one thing could be how cushy is your couch, or how like much do you sink into it, or were your feet relaxed on the floor and having a bend to them so you have some engagement. Otherwise, maybe a pillow under your back will help get a little bit more curve or shift your posture forward. Otherwise, it would sort of be like working. You just need a posture reset in your sitting posture every once in a while.
Maybe some weights on top of your feet.
Yeah.
But those are helpful.
Yeah.
Yoga, we do that in yoga.
Sure.
Okay.
Like,
It grounds your feet,
okay.
and it's a
So you're
mind-body thing.
you're activating the like getting the cues to activate your body a little bit more. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I think it's like going back to that list of things, our game plan. The first one is awareness.
Right.
We slip back in, get awareness. It's kind of like yoga or meditation. Like the human is gonna naturally fall into old patterns, and our patterns are old and they're like embedded in our body. But if we can just keep flipping back to awareness, just making that little switch, it'll cascade into healthy habits.
Yeah, Lena,
So I'm a preschool teacher, so I sit on the floor.
Yeah.
And on short chairs a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm active,
Yeah.
15 hours a day, but what's the best way should I be sitting crisscross applesauce?
Sure,
Should I
sure.
be sitting
That's a
mermaid
great
legs?
question. That one's
And
tricky.
I have really bad hip flexors, and so it's really hard to
Yeah.
get up off.
Well, and that's sort of what I was gonna go to, is because like that flexibility and strength balance, like when we look at toddlers and how they can use and engage their body, we ideally keep as much of that movement as possible. So like having a range of, am I on like these guys? Are you on one of these like shorter chairs kind of? So like being able to still be active on your sit bones, and my knees are bent.
Right.
And so having that flexibility to do that and engage that good posture while you're in it. Is that something I could do for 10 hours? Probably not.
Right.
I'd need to move my legs. They're nice and long ones. Otherwise, like,
But like when I'm sitting on the floor, like reading
Yeah,
or
yep.
playing with Mega Tiles or whatever.
right. And there I would say, finding the crisscross works, alternating sides can work.
Okay.
Again, maybe not for a long period, but on your knees, but having your feet underneath you.
Okay.
Because it's definitely in that sort of position. We want tucked underneath our hips, not toes turned out W.
Okay.
So that's one thing also, if you see the kids doing, like
Yeah.
that turned out changes the angles of the ankle and knee in a really not good stress way. So like sitting on our heels in that is really a powerful one. And I would say sort of like everything else, it's how can we activate and stretch those tissues when you're not in that position or in between to help it to not
Yeah, we
snowball.
roll pizzas for me, not them.
Yeah.
Fun thing, so
Yeah.
I can stretch.
That's awesome.
Sometimes it is.
I like that. Yeah, give everybody those cues and have that break to things. But having to do that for that long of time, I'm not sure that there's any other answer for anything that takes a long period besides how do we support your body when you're out of it or when you get breaks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks
Yeah.
for a good question. I'll think about it more and let you know if I come up with anything else.
I would also like you coming with that dilemma. I would be more concerned with how you're getting in and out,
Sure.
not necessarily when you're sitting on the ground or on a low chair. But like my cues would maybe lean a little bit more how you're getting into that ground posture and then how you're getting out, which we can definitely talk about later for sure.
I was a gymnast, so.
Oh, so you're flipping up and
I
flipping
did.
down.
I did flip up.
Perfect. You'll get me results, yeah.
I like that. Okay, what's our next one? Okay, the corrections for the upper cross and then the lower cross. So we talked about upper cross position being that we're rounded and the head is forward, right? And we're getting that curve in the middle back is exaggerating. So we want to stretch the pec right here. We want to stretch the SCM in the upper traps and the neck because those are pinching forward. And then we also want to strengthen deep muscles in the neck and then here in those shoulders, so it helps us to keep that pinch. And we'll walk through the stretches and exercises for that in just a second. But does that make sense? So we had those crosses of everything's forward, so we're gonna stretch and strengthen.
Okay.
Cool. Next one is the lower cross. So again, we have that hip flexors are tight, so we wanna work on those. The lumbar extensors get tight, and then we wanna strengthen the glutes, hamstrings, and core. So we're getting that, again, the crisscross of where we need to stretch and where we need to strengthen. So we're gonna walk through some of these, and do you have any other questions before I show you demonstrations?
What about order? Do you stretch first and then strengthen, then stretch? Does it matter?
It happens simultaneously.
Ironically, I had a slide about that, but I took it off.
Oh. Make sure
Poor
it's in the thing you
time.
sent us.
My 2 cents was kind of, you can kind of go either way, but essentially there's muscles that are overactive that you need to stretch, muscles that are underactive. If you just keep stretching the overactive muscles, the ones that are weak are still going to be weak. But if you start strengthening the weak muscles, they're going to pull in a healthy way. So I would always go for strengthening, put a little more effort into strengthening, and then stretching will be your little treat at the end, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
I like that. A hierarchy of it, 2 things for one, and otherwise, if you're gonna do both, I don't know that there's necessarily, what I would ask you to do is to try both ways and see if you like one more than the other. Because I could probably argue both sides of that,
Yeah.
of, stretching first or strengthening first, separate from the strengthening being sort of both.
I was a competitive tennis player for many years, and we always stretched before.
Yeah.
But just to get the muscles and then strengthen.
Yeah.
And then most important actually was afterwards.
Yeah.
Stretching.
Paying attention afterwards is huge, and I am also we stretched before we did activities, but there's different opinions about that now on whether we should actually be stretching something that we haven't actually brought more blood flow to. So getting movement and engagement before we're stretching,
Interesting.
that's why I say I could kind of argue both sides of that circle. But giving that cue of these are the things you find, which one you want to emphasize more than the other, because the more momentum you build, now we're engaging more of those endorphins and feel goods and confidence of actually doing more too.
Following up on that stretching, I've heard that if you have nerve pain,
Mhm.
that's not always
The stretching,
ideal.
sure.
I don't know if
Sure.
if you have a comment on that, because
I think it would depend on the nerve pain and depend on the cause of the nerve pain. Because the perpetuating of poor posture based on tension is likely not beneficial for anything, but doing things in the right way. And that's where sort of all of this is general recommendations, and the specifics of it we can dive into or you can dive into with others, because your situation could be unique in it. But that, again, like I think allowing something negative to perpetuate is maybe not the answer either. Finding the right flow of everything for you is the goal. We ready to go through some of this?